welcome to another episode of the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by POW, Card Games and Comics in fine, lots not so sunny Port Ewan, New York. My name is Skylar Hathaway.
I'm Chris Potter.
What do we got, Chris?
Today we're going to talk about Moon Knight number 24 and Something Epic number 2.
Yes, and Something Epic was only added on these last 10 minutes before the show.
Yeah, we both realized we liked the book and we didn't quite communicate that well enough beforehand.
That's not even relevant. But Moon Knight was the title for this whole week, the only title for this whole week. I was reading Something Epic when it came out last month. I thought it was okay. Mm. The first issue was a little weird, though. I'm sure you thought the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll get into it a little bit more soon. We're starting off with Moon Knight. Not because Moon Knight's any better or anything, or maybe it is, but
the main book.
That's just the book that we were planning on doing. But before we get to that, we got some honorable mentions. Me and Chris also made a little slip up. We're underwhelming Void Rivals by Robert Kirkman, Lorenzo Di Felici. I think I said that guy's last name right.
Yeah,
Felici. You can hold that up if you want.
Sure.
It's got this cool cover. It's kind of a Transformers relative book. There's Jetfire. Jetfire does appear in the comic book and flies away at the end. Not to spoil too much for Chris. I don't think we're actually ready yet. But it's going to tie into the series that is bound to make it here on Weekly Wednesday Warrior, which is Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson, coming out
October.
Cool.
It's October.
Cool. And then I think that's about it for honorable. It was a slow week in comics. Oh boy. Looks like next week we got 5 titles though. So
yeah.
Pick right back up. But moving on to Moon Knight by Jed MacKay for Federico Sabatini and Rochelle Rosenberg, who is one of the colorists in comics that I will probably forever mention now because she's absolutely killing it on this book. She's keeping things really consistent too, especially when we don't have the same penciler every issue. The book still looks pretty much exactly the way it should look even without the penciler on it.
Right, because she has a visual language that she conveys through her colors that keep things consistent.
And I don't know that she's done that with every comic that I've seen her on over the course of time, because she's been on plenty of titles that I've read already, but she's definitely doing it here with Moon Knight. Mm-hmm. It's definitely noticed and appreciated. So we got summary. I'm going to butcher the summary on Something Epic, so I'm going to leave that to you since I think that's more fresh in your mind. But Moon Knight I've got pretty much. If you're familiar with the Black Mercy, the Black Mercy is a flower in the DC universe that, if it's attached to you, it's some sort of parasite. I don't remember if it kills you slowly or not. I'd imagine it does. But its main focus and purpose, at least in the confines of the comics, is it brings you to a reality, dreamscape really, where everything that you could want happens. So our first run-in with Black Mercy in the history of comics is Alan Moore writing Superman. And I think the name of the title is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
No, it's What Do You Get for the Man Who Has Everything.
Right. And so he gets trapped in this dream world where Krypton never exploded. He's got a lovely wife and kids. Mm-hmm. So this is how this Moon Knight opens up. Gives us this Black Mercy vibe real hard. Were you catching that at all?
Oh yeah.
When you're reading it? And it's super confusing. That is my only complaint in this whole issue, is that I'm confused almost throughout the entire book. Okay. But you're meant to, on some level, and that becomes pretty clear.
Right.
So you open up, Mark's got a beautiful family. Marlene, his wife, is married to him. They've got a beautiful child with some Ramona Flowers get-up going on. Yeah. They've got his brother Randall is still alive with his parents, and they're all having a nice little family barbecue, Jewish family barbecue, and then just like in the comic with Black Mercy, Mark senses there's something up. Mm-hmm. Why are all these people still alive? I know half of these people are dead, if not all of them are dead. And it literally wakes him up, and he ends up, and he's in this what looks to be like a meth house. Mm-hmm. Everybody's on the ground. There's no furniture. Looks like it might be abandoned, and he gets contacted by Detective Flint, who's on the outside of the meth house. And what was confusing to me is another confusing portion, continuing confusion. you notice on the outside? I'll pull up the page. You notice on the outside of the meth house, it's like Kirby crackle all
it's
over
like
the
this
front of it.
purple haze effect.
Really strange, and not apparent either. You could flip through this page and not even look at it. It's all in like black and stuff. But there's totally like something on the building. Looks like it was graffitied onto the building or something. You only see the building in one panel. So we continue on. Moon Knight's walking around. He's trying to figure out what's going on. He sees everybody asleep, and he's like, Morpheus! Like, he knows immediately who's threatening everybody. It's this guy Morpheus is an old Moon Knight villain going back to the Doug Mensch and Bill Sienkiewicz days. And dude can control dreams, eat dreams, manage dreams, lock people in dreams, sleep paralysis kind of stuff. So he's knocked everybody out in this meth house, and they're all dreaming and stuff. So Mark goes to attempt to wake somebody up. By shaking him up, he enters their dream. Yeah. Which, again, a little confusing, but going to keep on going here. So he's in this guy's dream, and he's like a postal worker. And this is where we get a little bit of what I would call great comic violence. There's not a lot of opportunity for gratuitous violence in this issue. Yeah. This issue would have been sans any violence had McKay not thrown in a couple of things here and there. This is definitely one of the things he throws in. The postal driver is driving a truck through like zombie werewolves or something. Yeah. And Moon Knight's trying to like get a handle on the situation, and for 2 pages he's kind of failing to do so. But the truck driver, in the process of the postal truck driver in the process of driving, like knocks him into another portion of his dream, and he enters a club where Jake Lockley. Is that his last name?
Yes.
It is his last name, right? Jake Lockley is another personality of Moon Knight. Jake Lockley is at a club, and I really like the club aroma because Rochelle Rosenberg has this deep purple throughout the entirety of these 2 pages that are really cool. Something else to mention about Rochelle Rosenberg, in the beginning of the book, when he's in the first part of like this trip in his dream, even the white stuff all of the white things in that portion are still glowing. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. I didn't notice that until I flipped through the book a second time. So he trips into Jake Lockley's dream, and Jake Lockley's all his poker friends are back. All of his club friends are back. All the taxi people are back. Everybody's having a good time. Jake Lockley's walking around the club like he owns the place. And Moon Knight's still like, this is obviously still not reality. I need to keep on going. So he continues to travel. He finds Stephen Grant's portion of this dreamscape. Stephen Grant's, effectively, his dream is just to live out Mark's life without Mark. Nice. He's got the wife, he's got the kid, but he doesn't have the brother, the parents, Mark's
And he still has all the affluence. He's got the Midnight Mansion, or not the Midnight Mansion.
He's got the rich
Grant
stuff.
Mansion and stuff.
The helicopter, the relationship with Frenchie and all. So that's where that goes. And then, what wakes him up? Do you remember what wakes him up, Chris?
I think
he might just be his own ability. He might just
he got hopping through all these scapes and eventually hops out.
He got to a point where he's like, all right,
I think Morpheus gives up, actually.
I know it's right. Yeah, you're right. He's not staying in one place. I guess Morpheus is having a hard time locking him down, trying to give him what he wants in this dreamscape. Right. And so Moon Knight hops out, and he finds Morpheus on the ground near death.
Yeah, he has 3 bullets in him, all in vital organs.
You know, Moon Knight has to ask, like, what the fuck is going on here, bud? And refers to the guy as a friend. Says that he's even in here to help a friend out. Like, I guess Morpheus has maybe been a nicer villain to Moon Knight than some of his other villains or something. Right. I don't think he'd call Bushwhacker, Bushmaster, Bushmaker,
whatever one
Bushman.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd call Bushman his friend, but Morpheus, sure. So this vampire dream guy is dying, and he explains to Moon Knight that this was all a trap laid to set up Moon Knight, so Moon Knight would come talk to Morpheus to find out who did this to Morpheus. And Morpheus says something along the lines of, "I might not have been able to give you what you wanted in the dreamscape as much as I may have tried, but I can give you what you want in reality, and that's my killer is this dude you've been searching for, the Mask of the Phantasm,
Black Spectre.
Black Spectre. Totally just a rip off of Mask of the Phantasm again, though. Even the name at this point is Black Spectre. All right. Anyway, so that's pretty much where we leave the book. Morpheus dies in Moon Knight's hands. And we've got set up for the next book, which is issue 25. It's going to be huge. Probably going to bring in every portion of Moon Knight. We haven't seen Marlene in a while. We haven't seen
John Paul.
Yeah, we haven't seen Frenchie in a while. We haven't seen even the vampires that he's been hanging out with in a couple of issues. Because last issue was a Venom issue. So we've got some serious beats to clean up and do in the next issue. This issue made me way more appreciate last issue so much more. So I always read the prior issue. Splash pages in the last issue. I don't know what I was complaining about last time we did this episode.
They're pretty sweet.
But every single one of them were sweet.
Yeah.
They're just not what I would expect from, I think, a normal artist, because Cappuccio is just some weird dynamic freak of nature. And so he can draw really, really complicated layouts. And like at first glance, you're like, oh, that's strange. Then you give it another glance, and you're like, wow.
That's sweet.
That works really well.
And it's a really dark and unique inking style.
Yeah. I think it was just like it was just too much for me to take in one moment.
And like again, maybe since issue 1 have we had this many splash pages in an issue? We usually get like one, maybe.
Yeah, that was that.
They're very character
That
focused.
book was
most of the
basically half splash pages.
Yeah,
which was sweet. It was just a Marvel team up issue, which we said last episode. So this issue was way more Moon Knight. I think way more Moon Knight than the past 25 issues. We had a Moon Knight villain. We had Moon Knight cast. We had Moon Knight everything. I mean, we might have lost the penciler, but even the colorist was keeping things consistent.
Yeah.
This was this felt like Doug Mensch, Bill Sienkiewicz kind of issue, where this is not that action-packed. It's not super comic booky, but there's something we're trying to get across here. Hang on, and we'll deliver that message. And by the time I got to the end of this book, I was trying to figure out, like, I don't know if it was clear that we accomplished anything, but what we accomplished was obvious.
Yeah.
The death of Morpheus, one of the biggest Moon Knight villains in all of history. So, not that there was a whole lot done here, but of course you got to spend an issue killing off a character like that. You can just do it in a panel or two.
And I think we also gained something from Mark, and it's happening when he's about to get out of Morpheus, and he's giving this speech to Morpheus where he's like, you're trying to give me everything I've wanted, but I've worked hard to gain a place where I'm happy. And he has all these it's like a splash page of the two vampires we mentioned, and Tigra and her kid. And he's like, over the past 25 issues, I've been working to find myself in a better place. And I don't think it's very often that we take a second with Mark Spector to have him appreciate what he's done in his life and show that he's appreciative of who's in his life. I think it's almost out of character for him. Yeah. So I think it shows how he's grown and how he's grown as Jim McKay's written him.
And he's been doing it more in the most recent couple of issues, too.
Yeah. I almost thought this issue, until his parents showed up, I was like, oh, we're finally tackling Marlene and her kid. Because he's just in the white. It looks like Moon Knight. He has the mask off. It's sort of where we were picking off from the Tigra issue. Yeah. He's slowly gaining to trust people again. And then, of course, his parents show up and everything. I was like, oh, okay. We're doing like a dream thing. Yeah.
I want to compliment Federico Sabatini. He's got some pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, hard to pick up from Cappuccio.
Kind of same problem with on Daredevil. You try to fill in Mark Cicchetto, it's pretty tough. Yeah. But he does a really good job. Sabatini nails it. In fact, like all the moments where the violence were happening, I thought were the strong moments. Like at the end of the issue, it was like a panel where like Moon Knight's on top of a bunch of dudes that are trying to kill him. And he's just like killing him in the moons above.
Right, yeah, that was a sweet panel.
It was a really good panel.
Because they give him, Morpheus gives him like endless violence. Like, do you want endless violence? Yeah. He's just fighting everything. Yeah. It looks like a Barry Windsor-Smith Wolverine page. That really iconic one from Weapon X.
It totally does. And since we're on the page of homaging things, there's totally a panel in there where they homage an X-Men cover.
Yeah, the last issue of Dark Phoenix.
I have no ability to describe that cover other than to call it the disco cover, because it looks like they're like doing Saturday Night
Fever
disco poses and stuff.
I think it's 136, maybe?
Either way, I'll pull it up. That's definitely going to get pulled up so you guys can check it out.
No.
It's the high drama and adventure panel is what they're talking about.
Right, some swashbuckling.
I really love seeing all the old cast members, kind of like what Chris was saying with Marlene and the kid. We just didn't, this has been 25 issues, we really haven't done much of that. We saw John Paul a couple times. Yeah, he airlifted somebody out of somewhere in the run, I swear. I swear, Chris. Remember, this is 24 issues in.
Yeah, no, I could be forgetting something.
It's a lot. It might have even been in the annual, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe he showed up to pull Mark out of the situation with
Werewolf by Night.
With Werewolf by Night in the annual. He showed up, I swear. I can't, my brain isn't putting it together. we're definitely dropped into the middle of a situation with this issue, and we're never told how he gets into this situation. We don't know how Mark gets from where he was in the last issue with Venom to this meth house at all. We probably don't need it, but it does in this comic. It held me up a little bit. So this is a good issue, really good issue. Covers. I got the Mark Bagley cover. It's supposed to be like a more classic Moon Knight feel.
Got another Cappuccio one.
The Cappuccio one was really good. I
colors.
guess like you're supposed to be Morpheus in the background, doesn't it?
Yeah, looks like Green
Morpheus,
Goblin.
though. Yeah. You got anything to leave off on here, Chris?
I don't think so.
No, I think we banged this one up. It was pretty short, but it was good. All right, so we got something epic, written, drawn, scripted, colored by, might not be colored, by I'm going to butcher his name. I'm going to call it Simon Kudranski.
He does.
Kudranski.
Seemingly.
He even colors the dang thing. He's all over this comic book. And I have a huge respect for anybody in comics that goes and writes and draws their own comic, even if it ends up being like subpar. Just because it's a lot to juggle. So if you can nail a comic that's good, and you're drawing it, and you're inking it, and you're penciling, and you're coloring the thing. Even D-Dubs doesn't even color his own stuff, you know? You guys, Mike Spicer do that. This is something else.
It's a very different skill set to color. You have to like have a completely different frame of like imaging. Like inking is an extension of penciling.
Yeah.
Well, coloring is like a different skill.
For sure. I'm learning that myself as I color my own comic. I don't know that he's done another creator-owned, creator-driven book before, but I've seen this man's work, and with something epic, I had to pick it up. I had to see what this was about. Chris is jumping on over here at issue 2.
Yeah, I did read issue 1.
Yes, That being said, of course, we wouldn't be doing this unless Chris was kept up and stuff. Not trying to discredit Chris or anything. I think I might be a little bit more open to like independent titles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'll go and jump on some weird indie books, and then I'll tell Chris about it later. Chris will be like, "Yeah, this is great." Like Junkyard Joe, or like there's another indie book that we've been doing recently. That
Phantom Road.
really well. Phantom Road and stuff. Yeah. I really love some of the stuff that people are pumping out right now. But
Local Man.
But I don't pick them up unless I've read their stuff before. And chances are, if I read their stuff before, what was it? Probably Batman. Probably something Batman related. Yeah. So Jeff Lemire has written Moon Knight. That's where I met him. And
he has written Batman very recently.
He's done. Yeah, he did the Joker book.
He did Robin and Batman.
Oh, he did Robin and Batman too. He hasn't done Batman.
Right.
But he's been all over my peripherals like crazy.
Yeah.
And Tim Seeley has been in my main vision, has been in my peripherals. Tim Seeley writes a 15th of the comics I read across a year. So I'll read all of his titles almost.
Yeah.
So going back to something epic, the book we're focusing on today is issue 2. Chris, you want to hit us with a summary, and if you can, summarize the first issue fairly quickly.
Okay, yeah.
What's going on?
So, the whole idea of something epic is imagination is a scape that exists. It's something that
it's just a different dimension. It's the same. Actually, it's the same dimension as us. It's on a different wavelength. We can't sense.
It's something when your brain fires an idea, it's created in this other wavelength, more or less.
Yeah.
So and only savants can see it. 1 in a million creative geniuses can see into this world of cartoons and anime and comics
if that
exists around them, all over.
The other portion of this too is we're unclear as the audience if this is real or not anyway.
Yes, because it's all from this very young, he's 15, but a 15-year-old kid's perspective.
We have a very limited perspective. We don't know if he's an unreliable narrator yet.
Yeah.
But considering what he's talking about, kind of almost implies the unreliable narrator portion. The kid's also sick. He's got scoliosis.
Right, yeah.
Which doesn't always directly affect your mind, but does affect your mind. Mostly in the ways of remembering things. Scoliosis has a habit of affecting a person's ability to remember things properly. So, who knows what the background on this kid is. But Chris is totally right. This kid is...
At least what he's told us is that...
This kid is basically tripping 24/7.
Yeah, and he's...
Hard tripping. No drugs involved.
And while that's the background of the story is really about this drama with his family and what's going on around him. And
his family being just his mom, really, too.
Right, and his mom is sick, is what the whole first issue kind of builds up to. He's kind of avoiding school.
Yeah.
He's very much that creative type. You hear about them all the time.
Yeah, he has a hard time dealing
Sitting
with modern
in class.
society
Yeah.
because he feels and maybe even knows that he's meant for something better.
Mhm.
And the kid is a comic book drawer, creator of some level, at least an artist.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen any of his art yet. Funny enough,
We see it over his shoulder, and like it just looks like the comic book more or less.
but he's also got some level of powers in regards to this reality,
Which
that
is
he
what we
is
find out in
inside
this
of
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his mother's got cancer, or at least that's what we led to
Stage 4 young lung
lung
cancer.
likely
Which she
going to
hasn't
die.
gotten, which is probably hereditary, they mentioned. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't get it from smoking.
Yeah.
It's a 1 in a million, like, crapshoot.
And what
She has it.
what brings a person back to reality more than something like cancer? You know, and
Like,
this
Very specific trauma.
Simon Kudranski marries the words to the images in this comic like almost like nobody else that I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
because even if he's spending a whole bunch of time trying to teach you about themes and the things that are not the actual things the book is about, but the ground level that the book is being based on, he's providing you with a progression of story within the panels itself. So he might be talking about something on like this level, while in reality the story is progressing as normal.
Right,
There's a
yeah.
lot of themes and things that you need to swallow, and not just that through the words, but even through the panels itself, because the panels are trying to emulate what the words are talking about. So a lot of this comic is really, really, really well married.
Yes.
The words work really well with the images, and the images are powerful by themselves. He doesn't actually need any of the words he's giving us, like outside of the dialogue.
Yeah.
He could be giving us the story dialogue only. The words that he gives that are exposition for the rest of the comic are really trying to just like further develop the depth of what he's trying to tackle in this story. The story is imaginative and fun, but it's dark and real. But
And we see that in the art a lot, because I'm gonna butcher it, Krasinski?
Kudransky.
Kudransky, when he's drawing people, they're really heavy blacks. A lot of the time, you can only see the outline of a face, the eye, the in between the folds of the clothing. Really heavy shadows for most of the time. But then he also is marrying these, like in this issue, a superhero fights basically Vegeta, and it's this 2 different styles. And then there's also all these cartoon characters. Like, you can tell this is a man who has worked in not even worked, but has drawn all sorts of comics and imagery, because he's able to draw like
I'm gonna pull up
Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
I'm pulling up that double page spread from issue 1, even though we're talking about issue 2.
And again, that's from issue 2, yeah.
No, the issue 1 double page where it's 6 or 7 characters.
Oh, right.
And he's walking past them, and they're all walking past him.
Uh-huh.
That one sells exactly what's going
And like
on.
on the topic of zombies, there's a scene like a zombie's walking by and he has like a cartoon arm transplant, and it has a different effect on it, because like the colors of this book too, and his effects work is really good.
Yeah.
Because he puts this like hazy TV filter over all the old like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and also like when Superman, the superhero, is fighting Vegeta, it has like this lightning effect that really reminds me of what Carmine DiGermanico was doing on Flash, like this really bright, chaotic lightning effect that looks really good. And there's just all these crazy artistic things he's doing. This was mostly a first issue thing, but he draws these anatomical drawings that really remind me of one of the anatomy books I have, Dynamic Anatomy by Watson Guptilli, just based on Renaissance anatomy breakdowns. And the reason I cite it for this issue is when he's fighting there's a scene like halfway through the book. He knows his mom has cancer. All the adults around him are kind of walking around it. He only really has his aunt and his mom in his life, we find out. And one of the things he sees is this cartoon character being bullied by like another video game character. And he's just had enough of it, and he has this internal monologue about how he had to deal with bullies all his life.
Really funny though, too, the
Yeah.
interaction, right? Like because the video game the video game character is being bullied.
Yes.
It's the cartoon character
They might both be video
is telling the video game character
to give him his shirt.
give him his clothes, and the video game character is like, dude, this is I can't. This is me. I'm DLC.
Yeah.
This is how I come. I can't do anything about this. And the like cartoon bully is just not getting it. Is like trying to reshape the guy and stuff or whatever. And yeah, so the kid like gets involved.
He punches him, and the drawing he shows, I wasn't sure if it was his fist because it reminded me of those anatomy drawings, just how the muscles are drawn, and you can still see the sinews and the sinews in between the muscles in your fingers and stuff. The bone you can see.
And what that is
very
too
much
is
a breakdown
it's
thing.
another double page spread that I'll probably pull up.
Yeah.
And it's really trying to show that that the reality breaking powers that this kid might be able to this kid might have are relative to his ability to be an artist, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because the way it's rendered is it's pencils.
It's rendered like art.
It's pencils, no inks, no colors, and the fist that's going through the the bully dude, is very just art. It's not, doesn't look like reality at all. Takes this bully dude, the bully cartoon ends up in pieces on the street, and obviously then can't bully the other character. The other character goes
Yeah,
on
he
his
like
merry
misshapes him.
and so this kid has these powers. There's another dude too that's been following him around since issue 1. He meets him in the hospital. The guy doesn't say anything to him, but is kind of watching him. Talks to him.
He's watching the cartoon characters too. He like notices darting eyes, and like he can kind of see.
And the kid, our main character, notices that this adult dude is noticing the same stuff that he is, but neither of them really do anything about it.
Right.
Similar situation in the second issue. The guy watches him put this fist through this cartoon character, and again doesn't really do anything, but has a face of shock on him, like, oh, this kid's even more capable than we thought he was. This seems like
Whoever we is.
Yeah, this seems like maybe like a Men in Black sort of line, where like there's a secret service of people that protect reality from imagination. And this guy, this old guy, might be one of the people that do that professionally or something. Might be trying to bring the kid on as an agent, of some sort. But after that, he goes back home to do some art, to relax, to get his head out of the reality of the situation. His mother has cancer, and she's probably gonna die. He's probably gonna be living with his aunt for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So he starts to draw. He's got this like little Tinkerbell girl that I guess came with the house.
Yeah.
And the Tinkerbell girl is like an imagination, but is really cheering him on, is really trying to help him out and be there for him. So she hangs out while he draws. And in that portion, he describes in narration how pieces of imagination can't create themselves, but it takes all of their being to create something. If they wanted to, they could, but it basically supplants them. They have to dissipate in order to give room for the creation that something that isn't real creates. Sounds like something might happen later in the book.
Yeah.
Right, why would they tell us that unless it's going to happen? So the purpose of this issue really is just to get the kid to, have to deal with the fact that although he's pretty happy with living in imagination land, the reality of his situation is bringing him back to Earth on a constant basis.
Yeah.
There's a constant theme of what's real, what's not real, and how to deal with escapism and how to apply it to your life and what it should be about, what it should represent. There are family elements. The thing that's seriously lacking from this book is the kid almost has 0 peers. He doesn't have anybody his age that it seems like he hangs out with, and I'd imagine that's because he's fairly socially inept, considering he's been talking to cartoons for his whole life. There are 2 vampires that live in his basement that he's befriended since he's been living in this house, and they're harmless, first of all. One of them's a cartoon cat vampire, and the other one's like... if you've ever watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force, he looks like Mark the Landlord. He's this old vampire that's not very vampire-y anymore. He's just kind of old and crony and doesn't love life as much. It's very funny. So I might even pull up a picture of Mark the Landlord. But the book is, good God, this book is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And a sleeper hit too. Nobody's talking about this on the internet that I know of.
I haven't heard about it.
It's been dodged. And Simon Kodransky is famous at Dynamite. He's not an image guy. So he must have pitched this to Kirkman or McFarlane, and both of those guys would have been probably were like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this 1,000 times over. Also, he's drawing half the covers.
Yeah. And there's 4 of them, so clearly there's
he's drawing the regular cover, he's drawing the C cover that Chris got, and he's drawing the B cover that I got. This is cool. like G.I. Joe.
that's sweet.
Hold up your cover real quick.
Sure,
For the weekly Wednesday Warriors to check out. I would have picked the A cover, which was also good, but this particular G.I. Joe mock-up was pretty solid. So I'm thrilled to see where this story goes. I can't imagine it's going to be more than 6 issues, because of the fact that this man is
the workload he has to be putting
he's
into
doing
this.
all of it, and it seems like he could definitely get his point across in 6 issues too.
Yeah.
But this is one of those books that, if he does it properly, people could be talking about from years from now about comics, because he's similar to Local Man. He's taking the medium itself and he's making a comic about the medium more than he's making a comic about the character in the comic book.
And I think it transcends the media a little bit because he's just
Right.
talking about art as a whole.
Right.
Everything
Right.
is in this book.
Right. And I'd say that Local Man is trying to transcend the medium a little bit in the same way, in the way that it's trying to amalgamate all comics into one thing that you can do. This one way more than Local Man, but I think it's funny that 2 of these books have a place in the world now, and that people are ready to read stuff like this, and Crossover too would be another one that
if
is
that ever continues.
in this kind of similar situation. You're breaking the rules of comic books. You're no longer doing superheroes. You're no longer even doing like a
detective horror,
old Jack Kirby comics would be like, there'd be like 4 chapters in one comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like chapterized, like every little beat has a portion in the comic. This is one big story with a bunch of different themes and reason for existing that this person is trying to get across to us. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I don't know how much. This is one of those books. We have books like this on the show all the time, where we could probably talk about this book for an hour.
Yeah.
If we pulled it out like we do with the Shonen Jumps and like went from page to page to page to page.
Oh yeah.
There's plenty of content in this book to talk about, like the way he uses shadowing effects. How about how we haven't seen the face of any of the adults in the whole comic?
Yeah.
All of the words that are coming out of the faces of the adults, which are a lot, we get shots in their mouth.
Yeah,
and
that
their
was-
mouths have different facial expressions, which to do with just a mouth in like 6 panels.
Different facial structures too. Like you can see different
Insane.
quirks.
And then he's got the mother and he's got the mother's sister, the aunt, and even they look similar, but they're different enough in just like the few glances we've had at their mouth and nose and like eyes or whatever. This man's a master of his craft. He needs nobody else. I hope this guy does this comic and keeps doing comics by himself. I now need to go and look into Simon Kudranski comics, see if there's anything else out there, because this is awesome. You got anything to add to it, Chris?
Well, I'm going to give a shout to the dialogue real quick, because
Sure.
I feel like the
Sure.
way he writes all of these characters is very realistic.
The kid is very 15 years old. Right?
Yes. Everyone is always dancing around the point that they're trying to get across. And I don't know, I just feel like I've had these conversations or have been around these conversations with kids like this.
Yeah.
And I thought just the way he writes natural interactions is really impressive.
The kid's got like no patience for anybody except for imagination relevant type stuff. And even then he doesn't have a lot of patience for it.
You were talking about the mother's mouth, and the only time we really see parts of her face is when she starts talking about how his father was an artist, and he gets intrigued about to look at her a little closer.
Yeah. So
he's actually piqued by something she said for the first time since we might go to the comic store.
And how interesting is it that we see full figures, full fleshed out everything, bodies of everything imagination relative to them. And anything in reality, all we get is pieces.
Yeah.
Hospital room, we get pieces, panel pieces.
Very
We're in a
black,
hospital. The main characters and adults, we only get pieces of and stuff.
And the colors are like dull grays.
Yeah,
in reality.
they could just
look
be
boring.
wash. They could just be ink wash. I don't even know he's really coloring this stuff. And the realistic parts look way too real. Like if this book, you couldn't give this book to a kid, even though it's called something epic and it's super imaginative and imagination based. This is dark comics in both feel, color, and reality.
The other thing I wanted to highlight,
it's depressing almost.
he does these pages that remind me so much of the storyboards I've seen. Like when an artist does storyboards for a movie, like when who's done who's
trying to get the big moments across in the story.
But like the format too.
Yeah.
When he does those pages, it's like 12 panels or something. A lot of like these really small rectangular panels with like cropped borders on top and
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
Again, using different visual languages
Yeah.
throughout the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hit up Chris yesterday at what like
It was like
8 o'clock
PM.
at night. 8 o'clock at night. He had 2 or 3 more hours of work to do. I said, "Hey Chris, you got to read this comic, Something Epic. It's really really good." And he did so because he knew I wouldn't be bothering him unless the book was really really good. He
Yeah.
read both the issues and he's absolutely taken it back. So all right, why should you read Moon Knight? Because it's gearing up to the probably best issue ever.
Yeah.
It killed one of the biggest characters there is. It was the best superhero book on the wall this week. Why should you read Something Epic? It was the best comic on the wall this week. These are awesome comics. There's no comparison on the walls at all. If you're not reading these comics, you might not be much of a comic book fan yourself. You should reassociate yourself and read better comics. We got anything else to leave off on here, Chris?
No, I think
Offending
that
our
chops
audience
it up.
is pretty good, I think. Thanks for watching. We'll have another one of these next week with what sounds to be like 5 comics, so that'll be
Yeah.
fun. Lots of stuff to go over. We got the June 2003 issue of USA Weekly Shonen Jump coming also within a week or so. Stay tuned, stay posted, like, follow, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. Thank you for watching.
Have a good one.